As you can see, my name is Motheo, Koitsiwe. Like as I'm saying, I'm coming from Northwest University. I'm a lecturer, and I'm also a coordinator for the Indigenous Knowledge Systems program, which is hosted by the Indigenous Knowledge Systems Center in the Faculty of Agriculture, Science and Technology. Northwest University for the long history, but up to so far, because of the policy of the merger of higher institutions of learning, we have 3 campuses. We have Motheo campus, we have Koitsiwe campus, and we have another campus also. So we have 3 campuses at our university. So what I was invited to talk about today was to actually share with you how at the Northwest University we have mainstreamed what we call indigenous knowledge systems in higher institutions of learning in terms of teaching, learning, research, and also community outreach. I'm going to give you an introduction and just a bit of what indigenous knowledge systems is all about and the difference between indigenous knowledge and Western science. And I'm going to share with you the case study of the Bachelor of Arts in Indigenous Knowledge Systems and the Bachelor of Indigenous Knowledge Systems and the programs that we are teaching at the Northwest University, and share with you some challenges and also the prospects. I'm not sure if you can see what I have put there on my slides. So, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, I know that most of us come from different backgrounds and from different cultures, but from where I'm coming from, I've realized that there's a lot of tensions and a lot of misunderstanding and contradictions, especially when we talk about indigenous knowledge systems. Some people have different concepts or different terminologies as to what is indigenous knowledge. Others, they call it traditional knowledge, and others, they call it community knowledge, others, they call it in a lot of different names, others, they call it ethno knowledge and all those kind of. But myself and other people from where I come from prefer to call it indigenous knowledge systems or indigenous knowledge. And there's a critiques from educators, from scientists, and from other people who are ignorant about this indigenous knowledge system. Because some people, they think that this is knowledge of the past and got nothing to do with this thing because we are living in the 21st century. Especially when you look at the young generation of today. When we talk about indigenous knowledge, they will tell you that this is something of the past, and then we are not interested in those things. So I think the transformation of our education system is very important. And in South Africa, I think we have done a lot in terms of transforming our education system. Although our education, most of us, we agree that it's not at the level that most of us we expect it to be. Despite the plethora of educational policies which have been introduced by the Department of Education, but there's still a lot that we actually do in terms of trying to shift the mindset of the people, especially those who are teaching and those who are learning, our students and the community members. So I think in South Africa, like as I said, there's a growing awareness of the importance of indigenous knowledge systems, also in other parts of the world. So I think the mainstreaming of indigenous knowledge systems in higher education, for me, I look at it as one of the strategies for us to actually achieve what we call African Renaissance. And I think there's a lot of scholars who have actually engaged and who have written and have done a lot of research on indigenous knowledge systems. One of them is Professor Siepe, and one of them is Odora Hoppers, who actually talks about the importance of mainstreaming indigenous knowledge systems in the education systems, and how the apartheid regime actually have used their strategies to actually take away our cultures. And by taking away our culture, they knew that even our education is not going to be the best education in the world, because if your education does not teach you about your culture and your language, I think that education for me is useless. So we have seen in apartheid, we've been given what we call Bantu education, and that education We never talk about who we are, our identity, our cultures, our philosophies, our moral views, including the knowledge of the stars, the moon and the sun, and all those other things which now they call modern astronomy. But we have identified that as Africans, we have played a role not only in terms of world civilization, but also Africans in Africa and also in the diaspora. They played a major role in the fields of science, technology, politics, economy, and all those other important aspects. So as Africans, I think one of the strategies that we can use to redress the injustices of the past is by mainstreaming indigenous knowledge into the curriculum of education. And when I talk about indigenous knowledge, I'm not talking about knowledge of some people in the rural areas who are black. Because some people, when you talk about indigenous knowledge, or they will tend to think that, oh, this is knowledge of people in the rural areas, or knowledge of the black people, or as I indicated, knowledge which is old-fashioned. But what I understand about indigenous knowledge is that indigenous knowledge is a global phenomenon. You go to Australia, you go to Canada, you can go even in the Botswana, then you find the indigenous people. So indigenous knowledge is simply a knowledge which is unique to a particular community in a particular area. So, but when we talk about indigenous knowledge systems in this case, we're talking about African indigenous knowledge systems, knowledge which has been marginalized because of European colonialism, imperialism, and recently due to the challenges of globalization. In South Africa, we have a policy of IKS. It was developed by the Department of Science and Technology, and it was introduced by Cabinet in 2004. And this policy is one of the instruments that we use to actually develop a curriculum of IKS at our university. So, and also when you look at the revised national curriculum statement in South Africa, they talk about the inclusion of IKS in schools so that the teachers can be able, when they're teaching, for example, when teaching history, mathematics, science, you must be able not only to teach mathematics from a textbook and from a calculator's point of view, because from where I'm coming from, I grew up playing indigenous games. And in indigenous games, there are those geometrical expressions, which as a clever mathematical teacher or educator, you can use some of those social cultural examples in your own community, bring them in the classroom, so that you can simplify your concept of mathematics, so that the learners can actually see how they relate to mathematics, not just to see mathematics as an abstract concept coming from Europe or coming from a textbook somewhere there. Because we know that people have been doing mathematics before we bring calculators and before we bring these theories like Pythagorean theories and all those kind of things. So we are trying to make sure that when we teach at the university, we simplify this concept of IKS, and by also bringing some examples of modern subjects, like because I'm based in the Faculty of Science. So we must make sure that we also come up with some scientific concepts that can be able to apply also in our own local areas. Not only in the area of traditional medicine, because it's very easy there, where people do clinical trials and whatever. And that's not the area where I'm going into. I want to see how we can use science, modern science, to actually promote our knowledge. And also, not to look at our knowledge just as a knowledge, because I know indigenous knowledge is also a science in its own right. There are technologies that are locally based, and there's also science innovations that are also in our community. But the concept of innovation is always associated with universities and scientific councils. Nobody thinks that there could be an innovation that comes from the community. So we want to change these ways of thinking by ensuring that Western knowledge does not dominate us, but we must ensure that we bring IKS into the classrooms. And I think it's a challenge for the educators, because most of our educators in South Africa, as you know, they come from the background of the Bantu education, whereby, you know, there were so many policies which were introduced by the party to make sure that our people receive education which actually is not going to prepare them to become very active in this world. So I'm not going to go too much into this definition of indigenous knowledge. Like as I said, there's so many concepts that are associated with this knowledge. But there's so many also authors who have also tried to give a definition of what this knowledge is all about. But I agree also with Rajas Kram, who says IKS is a systematic body of knowledge. It's not a traditional medicine. Traditional medicine is one aspect of IKS. We've got what we also call indigenous or cultural astronomy. We can also form part of indigenous knowledge. We also have what we call indigenous science and technology. We also have what we call mitigation strategies and adaptation strategies, which our local people have been using against climate change. Because climate change is not a new phenomenon in Africa. People have been experiencing drought and so many other climatic conditions. And they never had any scientists from Europe who come and tell them how they must adapt and how they must cope with these things. They always had this prior knowledge. For instance, they use astronomy, cultural astronomy, for issues of agriculture and also in issues of calendar making. So we are trying to revive this knowledge and to actually bring it into the curriculum and to ensure that people are aware that knowledge does not come from Europe. Knowledge is also in our own local environment. I got this information from Nasser and Suzuki. They were trying to give actually a difference between indigenous knowledge and Western science. And I agree fully with them when they are telling us that indigenous knowledge, its approach is holistic. And when you look at the Western science or Western knowledge, it's compartmentalized. For example, let's look at our education system. You'll find people saying, no, I am a scientist and I don't deal with anything that does not deal with science. I'm a biology expert and I'm a specialist in that area. But when you're dealing with IKS, your approach are holistic. Let's look, for example, at a traditional healer. A traditional healer, when he is helping his or her patients, he or she does not only give them medicines so that they can go and drink them at home. Like when I go to a modern doctor, when I come, so the first thing he asks me, what is your problem? I say it's a headache. He goes back, he brings a packet of capsules. And he tells me, go and drink this and whatever. And that's the end of the story. But when you go into a traditional healer can be a social worker, you can deal with your emotional problems, you can also deal with your psychological and also your spiritual problem, because it's not just a question of physical health. So a traditional healer, in his approach of healing, is holistic. It's not just looking at the symptoms of the disease in your body, and he only wants to cure that. Because sometimes you know that the cause of disease is not just bacteria or whatever. You can have causes of disease because of your disconnection with your spiritual ancestors. It is why when you go to some Western doctors, some of these things they will not be able to identify them. And they will say, no, this patient, we cannot be able to help him or her. Because what they are looking for, they're just looking for the symptoms of the disease in your body. And if they don't find those things, they will say, no, this person, we cannot help him and take him home. And a traditional healer will be able to go into the root of this problem. He will talk to your ancestors, and he will also be able to find out actually what is the root cause of your problem. And he will try to address it holistically. So this is one of the examples that I think I agree that our knowledge system, modern knowledge system is compartmentalized. And it's also knowledge that can be privatized by individuals. Indigenous knowledge systems is not a knowledge that I can call belongs to me, although I can be a specialist in a particular area. But this knowledge is communally owned. It's something that belongs to the whole community. And the custodians of this knowledge, normally they are our traditional leaders who are actually taking care of this knowledge system to ensure that they protect it even from outsiders. And they do use customary laws to actually protect this knowledge system. But we know today that knowledge is being protected through copyrights, through patents, by using this international intellectual property rights regime, which in my view is not appropriate when it comes to the protection of the intellectual property rights which arise from traditional knowledge or from non-indigenous knowledge, because the copyrights or the patents, they've got their own limitations. And when you go into the community, you can't go and tell them about patents because they don't know what are those things. But in the past, local communities have their own ways of protecting their knowledge from outsiders and from people who can always use it for their own selfish interests. And we see this trend is going on. Researchers go into the community, they do whatever they do, and they take the knowledge and they don't even acknowledge the sources of this information. The research methodologies they are using are actually inappropriate. So we want to change even the whole spectrum of how to conduct research in local communities. You don't just go there with your cameras and your tape recorders and you say you're doing research. You actually have to be part and parcel of those communities. It's not just as easy as you think when you are sitting in the university that no, there's knowledge in the community and I should just send my students or I might just go there with my cameras. What I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is that the communities now today, they are much aware than in the past. So it's not very easy now if you can go to any community that you can think that you can come up with any specialized knowledge. They won't give you. What they will give you is what they will give you common knowledge, the knowledge which is actually known by everybody. But actually what is special and what is what we call specialized knowledge, they won't give you. A traditional healer will not give you the receipt or the formula of the medicine that she uses when he's curing certain diseases. For instance, in Botswana, there's what we call the bone setting technology. It's only known by those Basawa people. When somebody is broken, they can actually heal him without even taking him to the hospital and whatever. And they have their own herbs which they mix, and they will never disclose to anybody because we know all about the story of Buddha, how Buddha has been taken away, now it's being used to actually benefit pharmaceutical companies. But there's ongoing legal cases between South Africa and the international organization to see how the communities can actually benefit more, financially or otherwise in terms of commercialization of their own products. So I think another important thing is that indigenous knowledge systems is generated by communities, not by the universities like you see or Western knowledge. It comes from the universities, whereby there are some people who are writing and generating. But in terms of indigenous knowledge, this is knowledge that comes from the group. Like for instance, the knowledge that I have about the stars, the moon and the sun, I never got it from the university. My grandmother, she's the one who started to tell me about certain stars and what they mean to us. And she used to tell us these things when we were sitting around the fire. So when I went to the formal education, that's when I started to hear that there's something called astronomy. But I knew that in my own language, in my own culture, there's also this particular knowledge which actually needs to be documented. So those are some of the things that I thought they are very interesting. And also the issues of ethics. We know how modern researchers and scientists they can become unethical. I talked about how they do research in local communities. They use inappropriate methods, they don't acknowledge sources. They just take away knowledge and make it as if it belongs to them. So I want to share briefly with you the case study of the Bachelor of Arts in Indigenous Knowledge Systems at the Northwest University. So in 2001, the Northwest University registered the Bachelor of Arts in Indigenous Knowledge Systems with the South African Qualification Authority. And this Bachelor of Arts is hosted by the Department of Sociology in the Faculty of Human and Social Sciences since 2001. So the Northwest University has also established the IKS Center for Curriculum Development, Research Training, and Community Research. And one of the objectives of the IKS program is to compare indigenous and modern concepts and practice for greater scientific understanding in general and for a new paradigm of sustainable development. How can we actually use this knowledge to develop our own community? And then what I'm trying to say is that since 2001, we have an undergraduate program and we also have a master's program, including the PhD program. But next year, this Bachelor of Arts in IKS will be phased out because there have been concerns from the Department of Education and from other people who we are engaging with, because what they were saying is that this Bachelor of Arts, it has got a lot of limitation because it was focusing more on the social science aspect of IKS. So there was a need for us to develop or to actually improve this program or this curriculum. So we came up with a new program now, which is called the Bachelor of Indigenous Knowledge Systems, which I will also talk to you about here. This is the Bachelor of IKS. So the Bachelor of IKS, we also developed it in partnership with the National IKS Office and the Department of Science and Technology. And we started offering this program last year. We started with about 20 students. And we're getting bursary from the Department of Science and Technology. And this degree, it has got streams from both the social science and the natural sciences. Like as I said, the BA was only based on the social science aspect of IKS. Now we try to actually mainstream IKS also with the natural sciences. So this has been designed actually to prepare our learners in terms of knowledge, skills, and the values of IKS. So the qualification is a professional one, it's a 4-year program which actually is equivalent to your honor. So after your 4 years, you can go straight into your master's. So this qualification, as I was saying, it lays a solid foundation for learners to gain academic and practical competency. So with this program, we don't just want to produce learners like your learners who graduate from all these other programs and faculty. We want these students to become unique in a sense that they will be able to see how their own knowledge can actually play a very interesting role in the modern world. So I think for me, that's a very interesting paradigm because, our education has always prepared us to go and work for other people. And with this program, we are not preparing students to go and work somewhere else. We are preparing students to actually go back into their communities to become people who can develop their own business and who can become their own bosses with the knowledge that they have in their own community. Because this thing of working for other people, it does not work for us as the African community. And some people, they call it slavery. It's a modern form of slavery, whereby people just go and work. But I can tell even my teachers who taught me many, many years ago, when I look at them even until today, I feel very painful because their education which they have acquired does not take them anywhere else. In terms of salary, in terms of personal development, in terms of all these aspects that you can think about. Because their education designed them to go and work for someone. They never designed them to actually become entrepreneurial thinkers, to become people who can be able to bring solutions, not to go and ask somebody to come and help you with your own challenges. So, in terms of implementation of this indigenous knowledge system, we had challenges at the Northwest University. One of the challenges that we faced is the question of institutional commitment. Because like as I'm telling you right now, we started IKS in 2001 at Northwest University. But until today, we don't have a policy on IKS at the university that actually the institution commits itself to say that they are going to promote IKS and they are going to make sure that IKS becomes their baby. So the lack of policy for me, it shows that there is no commitment at the university or at institutional level to actually make sure that there are resources that can be used for the development of IKS. Another challenge that I've discovered is that the indigenous knowledge holders and the practitioners who are our elders in the community and who, like as I said, they are the people who know about this knowledge. Normally these people, they are not recognized because they don't have any certificate like myself and you get certificate from the school or from the university. So normally the knowledge that these people have, most of the people don't take it into consideration because this is not Doctor Who, this is not Professor Who. So if I bring a knowledge holder here, some professionals will start doubting some of the things that he or she says, especially on issues of astronomy, on issues of mathematics, on issues of science, because we believe that what comes from the West is perfect, and there's nothing also that comes from our community that we can talk about. So at Northwest University, our teaching method is totally different from what other people are using. When I'm teaching classroom myself, I make sure also that I bring a knowledge holder in the class. When I teach about astronomy or cultural astronomy, I bring an elder who knows about the stars and the moon. When I talk from a scientific point of view, you also bring a perspective from the past so that the learners can actually realize that astronomy is not just only what we get in the text. Also when I talk about mathematics, when I talk about science, we also bring knowledge holders in the classroom. And this is something that had never happened in the past. So, and when we bring them into the classroom, we also make sure that we also incentivize them, we give them some money for them, because they are not working with people. So we actually pay for their time that they invest with us. And also one of the things that I started last year is to actually give recognition to these knowledge holders. I had to fight with the university to give our knowledge holders some honorary degrees or whatever form of recognition that comes from the institution. And last year we managed to give one of our knowledge holders an honorary degree because she has made a lot of contribution in terms of IKS. Another challenge that I think I would like to talk about here is the question of lack of commitment from the academic staff to actually promote indigenous knowledge system. Like as I was saying, in South Africa right now, we've got only 2 people who have got a doctorate in IKS since 2001. And you will ask yourself, what have we been doing since 2001 if we only managed to produce 2 doctorates? It shows you that there's actually a lot of challenge in terms of supervision. Because if there's a student who's doing a PhD in IKS, you cannot bring somebody from chemistry to come and supervise that particular, because the quality of supervision is going to be compromised. So there's a challenge, because if there are no experts in IKS, then it's very difficult for us to actually produce those kind of people. So like as I'm sitting right now, we've got students who are registered for PhD at the Northwest University. But if you look at their supervisors, they are not people who've got a background of IKS. Although in their CVs they will write that they've been involved in IKS, but they don't have the qualification. Because if you say you're an expert in mathematics, that means you've studied this field and now you are an expert in that particular area. Then you can supervise until a PhD level. So I think for me that's a major challenge. If my master's program or project or my PhD project can be taken to a supervisor who is actually not familiar with that field, I think it's a big challenge, because that supervisor will either not pass that particular project because he does not agree with the things that I've written there, or he does not have a holistic understanding of those things. So for me, I think there's a major challenge that we are facing, because we don't have a professor, we don't even have a professor of IKS. But I understand, because it's a new area. Maybe I'll be one of the first professors in IKS, maybe I think so, because I believe that we need people who can specialize in this area. Another challenge that I think I've discovered in terms of IKS is that we don't have a coherent and comprehensive marketing strategy to actually make sure that the community, the learners and the educators, not only in South Africa, also outside South Africa, they know of what we are doing there. So, because we need undergraduate students and also those postgraduate students who can go up to the level of becoming PhDs. So I think that we need to work very hard to advertise what we're doing, either through information communication technology by using the newspapers, television, magazines, and whatever. But the challenge also with this one is that IKS has always been treated as a poor cousin in terms of funding. IKS, it has got no proper budget in terms of marketing. Because if you have to do marketing, we need to have also budget for it. But we don't have budget for this thing at the university to market our programs and to actually make sure that the youth and other relevant stakeholders are actually aware of what we are doing at the university. So, but right now we are working with the Department of Science and Technology to develop a website on this particular program where people can be able to actually access information and to come to our university. So I think we need to do a lot of marketing and recruitment in this area. Another challenge that I've discovered here, like as I've spoken about, is about the accreditation and the certification of indigenous knowledge holders and the practitioners. Like as I was saying, these people, we are bringing them to classrooms, but they don't have the certificates, and they are not being accredited by anybody. They are just operating on their own there. So we came up with a project with the Department of Science and Technology and the South African Qualification Authority to come and develop a framework of accreditation and certification of knowledge holders. So that these people, like as I was saying, we recognize them for their knowledge and the experience which they have gathered through informal education they had over the past years. So this project is ongoing, whereby we are trying to develop norms and standards for the traditional healers. So that when somebody says I'm a traditional healer, then there's actually the norms and the standards that they have drafted themselves as a traditional healer to say, if you are a traditional healer, then you must have this quality. Because even today, there's so many bogus traditional healers that you can find in the community. And most of them, they administer the traditional medicine to the community, but we don't actually have the proof that actually this person is a traditional healer. Even myself with my dreadlocks, I can go there tomorrow and set up my own multi shop, and I'm saying I'm a traditional healer. Nobody will dispute that. But these bogus traditional healers, but this, what I'm trying to say is that we need to stop this bogus traditional healers by coming up with a framework whereby we put the norms and the standards of how to identify a traditional healer. One of the big challenges that I've identified is that it's about the domination of foreign languages in our education system, like English and other languages in Africa. Despite the Constitution of South Africa saying that everybody has the right to use his or her own language in terms of education and all these kind of things. But we have realized that in the universities, it's a big challenge, not only in the university, also at school level. For instance, I cannot be, we are not teaching indigenous knowledge systems at the university using indigenous languages. Because some people will say, no, this thing of using indigenous language is a costly exercise. So what we are using now at the university is the medium of English in terms of teaching and learning. And I think for me there's a big challenge. Not only in teaching, also when it comes to research. Because when I have to go to the community, I can't go there with my questionnaires or my interviews being written in English. I must be able to translate them into the local language of those particular communities so that you can be able to get in-depth information so that at the end of the day you can be able to go and transcribe and translate the information for people who do not understand the language. But I think if you want to get any knowledge from any particular community, the use of the language of those particular communities is very, very critical. One of the last challenges that I want to talk about here is about research methodologies. Like as I was saying, IKS is generated in the community. So if you want to get hold of this knowledge, that means you must go and do some form of research at community level. But you cannot get this knowledge if you are using wrong methods and you're also using wrong techniques. And also you're also using the language which is actually not appropriate for that particular community. So when it comes to research methodologies, we have realized that even the theoretical frameworks that we use are actually not appropriate for this particular knowledge systems. So it is very important for us to ensure that we come up with our own research methodologies. I think in Australia, I've read some work of Linda Smith, who actually wrote a lot about the decolonization of research methodologies and how actually we can be able to craft our own methods which are appropriate for getting knowledge in our own communities. With regard to the prospects, I think the communities at large will benefit from the mainstreaming of IKS in the education system, because this is one way of demystifying IKS, and I think our education system also needs to be transformed. We also need to ensure that we increase cooperation between the communities, the researchers, the scientists, and the institutions of higher learning, so that we can really be able to promote this knowledge system. With regard to the way forward, I think that indigenous knowledge systems can make an important contribution in the area of education. Not only in the area of medicine, but it can also be in agriculture, and also in environment, and also in other areas which are very critical. And I think also what is critical for us is to use our languages, because our languages are very important when it comes to education. I believe in China, they are using their own language. I was in Ethiopia recently. I was listening to how Amharic plays a very important role in terms of the life of the Ethiopians. And I come back to South Africa, I find that our own children, most of them, is very difficult for them to speak their own languages. Not only to speak it, even to read and to write it is a challenge. Even myself, I'm a Motheo. But if you can ask me to translate some of this thing into Setswana, it's a challenge, because you see, language is a very, it was used as a tool to actually take away the knowledge of other people and to infuse other knowledge into their mindset. So the issue of language for me is very, very much important. And as I said, what is needed today, we need a comprehensive understanding of our own technologies, our cultures, and how we can formulate a strategy to integrate or to mainstream IKS in the education system, and also to ensure that IKS plays a major role in the global knowledge economy. So in the final analysis, I think the future of IKS depends on the effective networks, on the collaboration, the partnership among educators, the researchers, the scientists, and also the knowledge holders. With these few words, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say thank you very much. And I think maybe there are some questions that you want us maybe to clarify. I think this is an opportunity. I don't know if we will open some questions or there's a time on presentation. But I'm very happy for you being an audience.